So, okay, right on. So welcome everybody. My name is Shane Moise. I am with the Office of Innovation and Commercialization, and I'm program manager that leads the effort around getting accelerating innovation to market, out to campus, and as an opportunity for researchers and PIs to advance a project or new technology to market. So with me today on this panel, we have licensing officers, program managers from campus, and one of our representatives from our entrepreneurs in residence. So I'm actually going to throw it over to Brendan to start, one of our EIR. So your name, a bit of your background, and then nominate someone to speak after yourself.
Sure. So I'm Brendan Eckelman. Nice to meet everyone. As Shane mentioned, I'm an EIR for the year. Other than that, I'm a co-founder and chief scientific officer of Inhibrx, which is a biotherapeutics company focused on predominantly on oncology drug development and orphan respiratory drug development. So I co-founded the company 11 years ago. We have 4 molecules in clinical development. We've recently, well, almost a year ago, IPO'd. We've grown the company now to go from discovery all the way through clinical development, including all the intervening CMC and manufacturing pieces. And we just initiated a pivotal trial in chondrosarcoma for one of our lead molecules. So we're quite excited about that. Happy to be here. And I guess the first person I see to go after me would be Rachel. So thanks.
Wasn't sure if I was supposed to introduce myself. My name is Rachel Hummel. I'm the marketing strategist for the Office of Innovation and Commercialization. Happy to be here and working with Shane on promoting this great opportunity. I will call on Chris.
Thanks, Rachel. Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Lauren. I'm a 20-year veteran in technology development. Former co-founder of Thiologics, a biotech company in London, also co-founder of the San Diego Innovation Council. Previous activities included, I ran the Maxima Global Clinical Trial for Roche Pharmaceuticals, and I currently work as a Senior Innovation and Commercialization Manager in the Life Science team in the Office of Innovation at UCSD. And I'll pass it over to Parth.
Good afternoon. My name is Parth Majmudar. I'm Chris's teammate on the physical sciences team. My background's in biomedical engineering. Been doing this all over the country: Ohio, California, NorCal, SoCal, and I founded the biodesign program at Case Western Reserve University. So I definitely understand this area of trying to get more innovations to market. I'll pass it on to Dennis. If Dennis is there.
Hi, I'm Dennis Abramsky. I'm the Executive Director for the Institute for the Global Entrepreneur, which is a collaboration between the School of Engineering and the Rady School of Business Management.
So then just as a note that Marie and Joyce are also over at IGE. And so they are program managers and essentially a part of the pipeline and our partner supports in the ecosystem. So there are accelerators, both device and business, that we look to link many of our AIM teams to when the time is most appropriate. So now advancing, an intro to AIM and its place in our ecosystem. So this is a graphic that you would see if you went to innovation.ucsd.edu. And it's essentially our framework for where teams can both do a bit of self-assessment in terms of where they are in their startup journey, and then also to help link to specific resources that essentially kind of help them advance through that pipeline. And so AIM is a program that we most associate with teams that are in the idea or exploration phase. And so then there are some criteria that help us understand why a team would find themselves in that stage, and that's there underneath. So I'm not going to read it and go over it, but it is on our website, and this slide will be, this presentation rather, will be made available on the AIM program site as well. So AIM is in, I think maybe it's sixth or seventh year at this point, and very typically we have between 170 and 180,000 makes up the pool from which we make grants that are between 10,000 to 50,000. And so any given year, we're looking at funding between, depending on how much everyone is asking for, between 4 and 6 teams. Something that's unique about this program is that it incorporates many disciplines from across campus, and also integrates feedback and involvement both from our EIRs and from industry partners. And so that's a part of the review process for which the awards are actually made. Here are 2 examples of funded projects. And so, Chris, this is actually one of your faculty that you work with primarily. And so these are 2 projects from the last round of AIM. This is Dr. Kelly Fraser and Dr. Ed Chow. And so this is just an example of some of the work, the breadth of work that AIM is meant to fund, and then also an example of the stages. So Chris, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add, but these are just 2 project examples.
Well, of course, Dr. Fraser, very famous, a highly eminent scientist across multi-domain specialities. She's produced very high-level basic fundamental science, but also some interesting translational technologies. One of these, she applied for AIM funding in partnership with someone who had been doing a PhD project inside her laboratory, now Dr. Bill Greenwell. We're very proud of his success. And they had an interesting project that was proposed, excellent science, very forward thinking. And so we're really pleased that went ahead.
So essentially, we are looking for specific stages of technology, and one of the criteria are that it has been disclosed to the university. And so, a disclosure is very different than a patent, but I want at this point to throw it over to our licensing officers who are attending to speak a bit about, what are some of the, I guess not criteria, but, what should a team have in place before they're really going to apply for and take advantage of these funds.
Parth, would you like to kick off?
Sorry, Chris, you can go ahead.
Okay, no problem. So, I mean, obviously there's a range of projects that can apply. There's a broad scope and remit of this program, but I think, a really ideal project might be something where we've had a technology disclosed to the Office of Innovation, and an innovation manager has reviewed that and put in place the appropriate protection. That might be a patent, might be software, so copyright. There are other options as well. And then they've got a plan of how they want to develop it. I think those are the key aspects we'd be looking for. That's an optimal situation. But if somebody is coming, they've got some interesting scientific data, they think it's got some good potential, and they can see a plan forward, then I'd certainly encourage them to either apply or reach out to their innovation manager within the office to talk about the proposal. And then a plan can be crafted. Potentially, it might be appropriate to file for protection. That might happen later. We always say we let the science lead. That's the key focus. And so, there are a range of options here.
And Parth, is there anything that you'd like to add?
Just what Chris said is very much correct, and that's probably the best way to approach this. I don't think I would add is that the more experience or the further you've done your work, the easier it is to get started on this.
Yeah, definitely. I think that something that that folks in the review panels have really enjoyed seeing, and something that we encourage is when there are multidisciplinary teams. So if you have and are working with grad students from other departments or even within your own labs, that's something that we would like to see, because it does help to develop the pipeline of talent that's actually upcoming, that they're working with an entrepreneurial PI or researcher. So we encourage that, and then thank you both, Chris and Parth. Yeah.
And actually make a very good point there. If there are any doctoral candidates watching this, firstly, congratulations. Hope you're working hard. Well done. And if you think you've got something interesting, speak with your supervisor, your PI, and do consider applying for AIM funding, or at least making a disclosure, because there's lots of options and opportunities here, and the assigned manager will be pleased to work with you. It's very high priority to support our PhD students. Number one, we want to see them graduate, but then a lot of those people move on to graduate, get their doctorate, and then they become a founder of a company, which is wonderfully exciting, and AIM can help that in some cases.
Actually, Brendan, while we have you, you've spoken with some of the AIM recipients, and I'm not sure if you've advised any other teams this year to apply for the grant. Do you have anything else you'd want to add?
Not much. I've predominantly worked with synthology, trying to figure out the next steps after AIM. And I assume you can't apply for AIM twice, was a question I was going to ask, right?
We have seen applications come in from the same teams, and I think we have funded the same PIs in the past, but that it has been for different projects. So an adjacent project, but not typically funds to advance to new milestones for the same.
Got it. And then the other company that I've kind of started helping out is more established, but also out of UCSD, Alpine Biotherapeutics.
Excellent.
Again, they're probably beyond the stage for AIM, I would say. They've already obviously started the manufacturing process and are moving towards an IND. So, but I think it's a great program. So happy to send more people that way as I see them.
Excellent. Yeah, and the point that you made about kind of being too far along to really make best use or be aligned with the intent of the program is valid. I think we added this year, if you've got Series A funding, or you're already seeking funding from investors, or even further down the line, it's really not as aligned with the program's intent. So,
sure.
Great point. Yeah.
And how are people finding AIM? Like, if you are a grad student in, and have an idea that you think it has commercial potential, is it mainly just through the Office of Innovation, or are the PIs across campus pretty well informed about it?
Yeah, well, we like to hope so. We have many kind of vehicles of promoting this. So it'll go out through our social channels. I'm actually glad that Rachel's here so she can talk more about this. But just quickly before I throw it to her, it's through articles publishing things about the PIs who've received the grant. So as they advance their projects, Rachel will interview them, and then we create content that helps promote the program. And then actually through our licensing officers. So Chris and Parth, being really strong advocates of the program, are able to work with PIs who are in their portfolio, and they identify someone who's at who is at that sweet spot stage, who really could use and put that grant money to the most impactful place to advance it. So Rachel, do you want to add anything else about how people find it? And then maybe Chris and Parth, if there's anything you want to add about how you promoted it.
I don't have too much to add about it. I know that we've been kind of both marketing it, and then also a lot of our innovation partners on Ideas Council are also sharing it as well. So it's pretty easy to find. And then we'll be using this also to share with audiences in case anyone could not hop on the call.
And I would just comment that this is a very successful program by the Office of Innovation, handing out non-dilutive, relatively easy to access funding for exciting technologies. I think it's fair to say a lot of researchers are very well aware that this exists. I wish we had more money in the pot, but we'd always like to spread the word more, but I think a lot of people are very well aware of it.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what Chris says. Chris said, yep, the inventors absolutely love this program. I always have them calling, like repeat inventors calling, like, hey, when is this program running again? When we go ahead and up and apply for it? And also, Chris and I do a lot of word by mouth. You know, just when we meet with our inventors, tell them, hey, there's this program. This gets to a patenting stage. You should consider applying to this program and trying to get some non-dilutive funding.
So then this is kind of a bit about the pathway to commercialization. So, we typically do have veteran entrepreneur PIs. This is not their first company, but the hope and the intent with this program is really to engage people who've never done it before. And so that's why we've got the support and engagement from our EIRs to share their experience. But I think, to illuminate a bit of, okay, I've got the grant, I've got some milestones, I have something I think is ready to go to market, I've patented something with the OIC, then, who and what is the process like to actually move that to market, at least through licensing with our university? So I want to throw that over to Chris and Parth again to share that perspective.
Yes, absolutely. So it's well known in the US. There's a law called Bayh-Dole, which establishes a framework for how assets and valuable technologies move from a university environment into the commercial world. And the Office of Innovation prioritizes that process. We want to get things out into the universe so they can help people and maybe do a little business as well. And so other universities, sometimes people find this process can be quite difficult to navigate, kind of full of friction. And so Chancellor Kozler, over the last sort of 6 or so years, has implemented this program of frictionless, and we've seen a huge success. We've been catapulted up the ranking tables in terms of formation of companies and licensing. We're amongst the best in the nation, which means we're the best amongst the best in the world. And so we have well-established procedures for how we package up the technology into a license, pass it over to the company, and then they can go out and do what they need to do in terms of starting experiments, but also raising money. And we've seen huge success with this, which is very important, because when one of our wonderful founders starts a company and takes a license to a technology, then they're going to go to VCs. And these people are very sharp. They've got PhDs in the subject, they've got an MBA, and they're reviewing the technology. And if the decision is to put in $8, $30, $100 million into one of these companies, that's very important feedback that we've all done our jobs very well. It's great science, solid patent, and a good license that can raise money. And we absolutely have that feedback. The San Diego region is breaking all records in terms of venture financing right now. Last year, we did $5 billion worth of business as a region, of which UCSD is obviously a part. This year, we've already hit that milestone. It's only August. So I think for our part, the process is working very well. And as an office, we really do try to make it as frictionless as possible.
So I've just been made aware that apparently there is a passcode required to enter, and that might explain why it's just us. So Rachel, I think you're troubleshooting that at the moment. So we are going to keep rolling though. So in terms of frictionless, yes, and it's something where this would be the ultimate goal with AIM, but that there are a lot of other milestones and things that need to happen before we get there.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, of course.
So is that license, it's not already negotiated at the time someone's seeking AIM funding, correct? Okay.
I can jump in there. So typically not. We like to let the science lead. And by the nature of the AIM funding, you don't always know what's going to come out of it. There could be a brand new invention, a whole new field of discovery. And so we'd leave that till later. But one of the cornerstones of the frictionless program is, if people wish to choose it, there are some very very, I don't want to say generous, but very straightforward, simple financing terms that people can take if they wish. Although, of course, if their business plan, they want to move in a different direction, we're open for business and happy to talk.
Great, thanks.
So as I was mentioning, that a license is one more milestone in the process of launching a successful startup or getting a product to market. But there are a lot of other, let's see, variables that are included in that, and that includes developing a business plan, a go-to-market strategy, even having strategy around the IP that has been acquired or rather developed. And so this is where the EIRs, along with entities and units like IGE, really come into play and add a ton of value. And this is through the Business Accelerator or the MedTech Device Accelerator, two programs that go out of engineering. And so Dennis and Brendan, actually, if you two could add a bit more, or maybe more specifically, what are the kinds of supports that, I guess not supports, but ways that your roles can add value as a team is looking to get something to market? So I'll throw it over to you.
Sure, I think one thing is really just crafting the business strategy, not just from the scientific standpoint, but from the standpoint that what's the best path for the company in terms of, you know, where they should focus. You know, obviously there's many different paths, and where they what's the most attractive to investors. I think that's where I kind of honed in on working with companies, and I think that's important from the onset. Is what the most expeditious path to, you know, that value inflection. Because again, you can get on a, you know, you can run around in circles and not create any value without, you know, defining that path.
And Dennis, I know that you've actually, you know, with IGE and OIC, we've actually been really close partners in IGE, not in IGE, with AIM, and rolling it out and supporting teams as they've navigated that pathway. Is there anything that you want to highlight in terms of what kinds of support and resources IGE can provide to teams that that may find themselves the recipients of an AIM grant?
Shane, I think Dennis has dropped off.
But not all concerts will include
Okay, yeah, well then, Joyce, I'll throw it to you.
Okay, well, for recipients of an AIM grant, I think that we're looking to provide assistance to any teams who are using that money or are moving on to the next step beyond that exploration phase. And we offer entrepreneur education with our I-Core program to learn how to do customer validation, and we'd also talk to them about possibly joining one of our acceleration programs, in which case they would, and in those programs, they would get more in depth and more focused education and assistance in developing their idea, their team program.
Yeah, one thing too, I really enjoyed about the IGE model is that, and like OIC has set up entrepreneurs and residents, IGE has curated a cohort of mentors as well, who are business and technology experts, who, you know, as teams have questions or specific issues, they can tap into that talent pool to get specific help on some of the questions that they're facing. So
yeah, and in more advanced levels of the accelerator, we actually pair the team up with a specific mentor who walks them through, you know, like a strategic plan development and can provide other assistance like introductions to other partners and potential investors. And that program, that phase of the accelerators will last several months. So so they can work in close partnership with them over a significant period of time.
So I want to, as we're starting to wrap up, before we get into open questions, I want to make sure, because we do have a lot of people who've jumped in. Are you all able to submit questions either through the chat that we can address? I'm sure everyone should be able to. So if someone wants to drop a question in there, have a test, let me know. But here I want to highlight the contacts for our office. So again, our website is innovation.ucsd.edu, and the leads in terms of how our team is structured, we've got life sciences and physical sciences, and then an IP group. And so their contacts are here, Victoria and Donna, and then of course Chris and Parth are a part of those talented teams. And for those of you who are active on social media, please, I encourage you to connect with us, because these are a lot of the places where when grants are made available, and also partner grants. So one that I'd like to highlight now is actually through Merck KGaA, so the Darmstadt office with their subsidiary groups, EMD Serono, Millipore Sigma. They've actually got a research grants series going now. They've reached out very specifically actually to engage talent from UCSD. So that's actually due, as a side note, at the end of this month. So have a look and follow us or connect with us on social media. So it looks like the chat is open, Rachel. So thank you for that. So as a note, this session has been recorded and will be posted online, both at the AIM website and hopefully with some of our partners across campus. So are there any questions from the group? Rather from the attendees.
Shane, could you highlight the timeline again? I know something is occurring in October. That's the review, but so what about the deadlines for applying?
Yeah, you know what? That was one of the slides I should have definitely included. So the AIM grant will be running through or accepting applications through September 30th. So I encourage folks, don't wait until the last minute, because our licensing officers are actually able to review applications as they're coming in. And we're not going to wait for this big batch, because we actually have a very tight timeline for internal review. It's about 2 weeks. And then we're looking at the week of October 18th to the 22nd. For the industry panel reviews. And so for attending folks, please look at, it would be, this now I've got scheduling for leadership all in my mind, but it would be likely Monday the 18th. There would be 2 2-hour blocks where we're going to have teams actually present. And so this would be where you're going to present 5 to 6 slides to a panel of industry, campus, and really just industry and campus partners. And then that group is actually going to make recommendations on for funding. And so then timeline wise, if that's the 3rd week of October, we're looking to make funding announcements by Halloween. So it's a pretty rapid turnaround, I would imagine, in terms of grant giving. And then as soon as those funds are awarded, you're able to start spending. And so our office actually works with getting money out to the appropriate project tasks. And so if you've got a financial officer contact in your office, start to get acquainted with them. And we, of course, help with the guidance of how money is meant to be transferred, how it's meant to be accessed and used for your proposed line items. So I think that, yeah. Was there another question?
Sorry, I had one more. So how many applications do you generally receive, and then how many come out through the internal review into the industry partner review?
Yeah. Let's see. So we have in the past intake on average 35 to 45 submissions from across campus. We always want to see that grow because while not everyone will be passed through to the industry board, we're able to then track and still connect teams with resources that might get them in a better spot, for funding another time, or their project might be a great fit for another granting program. One I'd like to highlight is actually galvanizing engineering in medicine, which is an even earlier stage. So it's really just an idea that that's another, again, non-dilutive funding for advancing new projects. So, so let's see, that was about how many we've gotten typically on average. And then we tried to narrow it down to like a top 10 projects. So from that, then about a third get moved on to make presentations. And then from that, we typically fund about 4 or 5 or make grants to about 4 or 5 of the teams. So then it's in half from there. So.
And Shane, for anyone that hopped on late just because of our technical difficulties, can we also drop the slide deck so that they could take a look at it? I know it's been recorded as well, but.
Yeah, actually, I've got this. Rachel, would you mind grabbing that from the email I sent out? The link for the slide deck, the full deck is viewable by anybody. It's a Google slide set, so folks can hop into it and have a look through at their leisure. So from slides, are there any other questions from attendees? Chat.
Yeah, hi. So can you guys hear me okay? Okay, perfect. So yeah, I just had a quick question. So I was looking at the website and some of the research areas that you guys support, and most of them are kind of like biology related, right? Like medical sciences related. So I just had a question. Maybe I understand this is targeted like AIM specific info session, but then if there are like other aspects, if you want to pitch an idea on, are there would this be the right avenue? Like, would AIM be the right avenue, or is there somewhere else I should be looking towards? So, like specifically, what I'm looking for is like like AR and VR applications.
I can see Chris nodding yes.
And yeah, I mean,
yes.
so I'm just going to jump in. I think my own area of practice is digital health, but the AI, the AR, VR, etc. UCSD is a world leader. Are you at UCSD? Are you maybe an engineer or something?
No, I'm a ECE PhD student.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. No, that's fantastic. Perfect. I mean, I don't know specifically the parameters, but I would hope we get lots of applications from these kinds of exciting areas. I don't think AIM is focused on medical stuff. No, broad range. And an area of such high expertise like yours at UCSD, I hope we will be getting applications in those areas. Absolutely. It's
okay.
a very hot area right now.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I was just maybe thrown off a little bit by I was just looking at there's some life sciences research areas and environmental research areas on the website, so I think I was just a little bit maybe thrown off by that. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you noted that. It's something that we are looking, and we tried to expand more this year. So you can see there's, I guess, non-human, and then things down at SIO. But yes, definitely that's a note that we should look to edit that page and make sure that AR, VR stuff, and specifically any kind of software or engineering stuff is included.
All right, thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions?
And for anyone that hopped on the call late, we just shared the slide deck. This is being recorded, so sorry we had a little bit of an issue with our Zoom. That is the slide deck again, but we are open for any questions that you have just about applying and the program itself.
So the grants are gifts. I'm sorry, I joined quite late.
Yeah, I'd say, not, I mean, we call it a grant, but it would be a non-dilutive. So, no one is taking any kind of stock, or it's not an investment. There's essentially kind of no strings attached. There's guidance around the spending, and I think preferences, that if it's going towards tools or just towards personnel, we like to see a mix of that. So yeah, no, it's not. It is
Just to add in there as well, of course, there are some subtle differences between a grant and a gift. A gift is typically no strings attached, whereas here we hope an applicant is going to propose a piece of work and then do it. We want to fund some interesting science and see the output from that, and we'd like to see that work well. And so it is a non-dilutive grant effectively. But we want to fund research, and we want to see progress in the package of work that's described being done.
So the grants will be given to like the personal bank or to like a project or task.
Whereabouts are you in UCSD?
Yes.
Okay. Well, different departments do handle money slightly different ways, but generally it goes to a fund within a lab, and then it can be used and allocated as needed.
I see. Okay. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So our office won't be like cutting a check to any individual person or an external entity. It's all handled within the university, and it's something too where in the past we've actually had teams return money. If a student moves to another university or a project, isn't viable, then they'll say, hey, you know what, we're actually gonna have to return this. And so those are things that, in terms of integrity for use of the grant, that if something's, added or the project changes significantly in scope, that we want it to be a conversation. So letting myself and my office know, and that we can then work through any of the shifts or the challenges that you're encountering. There's a question in the how about teams that is a mix of current UCSD students and UCSD alumni? Are there any restrictions? So no, there aren't in terms of who is on your team. Some input and perspective that I actually incorporated from our licensing officers in the past 2 years was that we do want there to be a disclosure made, that the project is based on a disclosure that's been made to our office, but that underlying potential IP or the disclosure and any other IP can be both UCSD and non-UCSD IP. But either way it goes, we do want there to be some link in terms of a disclosure or intellectual property to UCSD. So if it's an alumni company and all the IP is outside of the university, it wouldn't be as compelling for receiving a grant. Does that make, Chris, does that make sense? And Parth, did it make sense to you too?
I mean, we're going to score highly projects that are UCSD protected IP that's arisen out of UCSD research, and is going to be research done within the university by the nature of this program. If there's external advisors, that's fantastic. Indeed, that probably strengthens a project, particularly if they're getting business advice, translation advice, in the future, fundraising advice. That definitely sounds very attractive to me in terms of a fundable program.
Yeah, and just to say, like, if there are inventors on the technology that are outside of UCSD, that's usually been worked out by the time it gets to the AIM grant stage. Usually the outside people that have the rights have assigned the rights to UC or something else has worked out.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, that clarifies my question.
And there's another question in the chat. And how about UCSD students working on a startup without any affiliation to any specific lab within UCSD? So that sounds like it would be an undergraduate project potentially. I'm not sure. Mary, can you add a bit of context?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Shane. Thank you everyone for the description and all the information that you provided. That was really helpful. So the question that I have during the conversation, like a few minutes ago, someone mentioned that the grant wouldn't be turned to individuals, but instead just to some sort of lab within the UC San Diego. I'm wondering if a couple of PhD students are working on a startup and if they go through this process and get a grant, but they don't have like any specific application through that startup with any specific lab at UC San Diego, who would get paid?
It's a tough one because I don't think that we've encountered that before. Very, very typically, as in everything that's ever been submitted has actually been linked to a lab in some way, either disclosed or IP that's managed by the university. We've had conversations about the potential of engaging undergraduates with this kind of grant because undergrads are doing amazing science, but our office doesn't manage any IP for undergraduate students. And I'm not sure, how. I think that there should be a conversation with your team and someone from our office to talk about, the potential IP and how things could progress. Chris?
Yeah, if I can weigh in here. So
yeah,
the title of the program is Accelerating Innovations to Market. So we are looking for innovations, a tangible thing like a patent or some software or something. Whereas if particularly undergraduates are working on an interesting business proposal, number one, that's fantastic. Number two, our basement team is absolutely superb. Do you know them? Do you know the basement, Mary?
Oh yeah, I already had an affiliation with them, and like I was part of the incubator program during the summer. That was fun, but like more I feel it was more targeted toward like undergrads, as you mentioned. Yep. And like the fundings are really limited compared to what you are offering here. And since we are all PhD students at UC San Diego, that's why I'm wondering if we can also benefit from what your group has to offer.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, every case is different, and so I'm happy to talk with you and maybe point you in the direction of something. I would say that the wider world, if people are working on a startup concept, that right now we're in the best fundraising environment we've had certainly in 30 years. There's a lot of venture financing out there. The AIM program is peanuts compared to the amount of money, and people coming out of the UCSD have a superb provenance if they've got a good business plan. Now, raising money is never easy, but it's as good as I've seen in my entire career. So I'm going to drop my email address in a little message to you, and we'll connect, and then I'll try and help point you in the best direction depending on your needs. Would that be okay?
I'd be more than happy to discuss it with you further. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Wonderful. There was another question. How do we review the progress of the project? So AIM projects, once funded, there is a midway or a mid-year report that we collect. It's done in a survey format, and it asks questions about how much has been spent, up to that point, how many students are working, on the project or in the laboratory with the lead researcher or PI, what are key milestones that have been met, and then some questions about business or entity formation and what kind of additional resources would you require or would be helpful. And then there's a final report at the end of the year. So the grants are good essentially for a full year. So if the grants are made in November, we'll allow spend through next November. Is what we found is most effective and expected with these projects. So the mid-year and then final report is how we collect that data. Let's see, two more questions. Is it possible to be the only team member in a lab working on this project? Absolutely. Science and creating new technology won't always have a team when it gets started. I think, if you were granted funds, that a lot of the support structure around campus would look to help you advance that, would include helping to build out a team that can help you do that. So yes, you can be the only person applying. And then let's see, there's an issue with the original Zoom link, and I was just able to join. Is this session recorded? Yes, the session is recorded. Rachel and I have she's been messaging me. She'll get this posted. We'll get it up on the site and then likely have it sent out to all of our partners to get it then disseminated to campus. This is actually the first time that we've done an info session for AIM. So we hope that there's been some helpful information shared, but then we'll definitely use the recording to spread, I guess, the good word about the grant and the opportunity that we have. In terms of time, we've got about, I think, a few more minutes. Are there any other questions or any key things that any of our panelists wanted to highlight before we all depart for the afternoon?
I'm just going to mention that I've had a couple of messages come through from people who are generally in the physical sciences. And so I may be directing you immediately over to some of my colleagues who work on much more on that side of things, the engineering, computer science, and so on. But I'll be in touch nevertheless.
Thank you, Chris. Well, I want to say then thank you to our panelists, our partners from IGE. Thank you so much for sharing your insight, your perspective, and your expertise today. Your opinions are immensely valuable in helping people prepare the best applications that they can. For those who are attending, again, my sincere apologies for the issues to get in to this conversation. As a reminder, it will be recorded. And then the panelists that are here, I'm going to volunteer everybody. We are all listed on our innovation.ucsd.edu website. Please reach out to any of us individually if you have questions about what would make a strong application. But then if you've got anything related to process, email me. And so I'll put my email here in the chat to end. Thank you again, everyone. Take care, be well, stay healthy, and we look forward to seeing your submissions. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.